Welcome back to Dungeon Brew. Today we are going to be getting into our settlement series. The first one on the list is the Roadhouse. Stay tuned.
Welcome to Dungeon Brew.
Here at Dungeon Brew, we are about to release our first large crowdfunding project on BackerKit. It is Thagum. It is a new campaign setting manual that gives you a grim, dark steampunk world. Over 200 plus pages. That's going to have new subclasses, new lineages, new weapons, gritty firearm mechanics, new feats, new monsters, city guides, and so much more. We are launching on September 9th, and we are looking for you just to go and follow the page right now and be ready for that launch. So follow the link, go check it out, and then come back to the video.
Hey everyone, we're going to be starting a new series, and this is the first video in that series where we're talking about how you can go about building a settlement, along with a long list of things that you should be considering whenever you're trying to build some kind of settlement. We've got everything in this list all the way from the Roadhouse, which we're going to cover today, through cities and metropolises, and each one of these videos is going to cover various considerations you should be looking at when you're trying to build something like that. Keep in mind, this is mostly oriented towards, fantasy, D&D style settings, because that's mostly what we deal with. So if you're looking for anything that is more advanced, then this might not be the series for you. But if you're after fantasy, that's where we're going to be.
You should still watch this video before you go find the one you're looking for.
I mean, I guess so. Joshua, do you want to get started with giving us a description of what a roadhouse is? We're not talking about, the movie. That's not this. This is...
Yeah.
Right.
You're too stupid to have a good time.
I've never seen that movie.
I don't
but I've
know.
heard
I
it
just know
referenced
he's got
often.
really tight jeans.
Yeah, that's all I know too. All right, so a roadhouse can be considered many different things. It could be considered a tavern. It could be considered a caravansary. But essentially what it is, it's a single dwelling with no more than a few buildings that are included with that can be used as a wayside for travelers. There's other definitive ways that we could look at this too, like maybe it's a military outpost, maybe it's a religious shrine, maybe it's a trader station that's off to the side, but essentially it's something that's outside of regular civilization that's utilized for travelers to stop and utilize to, whether they're repairing their armor or feeding their horses or finding a place to get a meal and a bed before they're heading on to their destination.
Yeah, and realistically, this is the smallest type of location that you can consider to be a settlement. Generally, I think most people think of like a hamlet or something like that as that. But this is about it. This is a place that is at least welcoming to travelers in some way. And it's okay that they stop there and they handle their business while they're there. Many of them assume that accommodations are going to be provided to spend the evening before moving on their way.
Yeah, it's not to say that you might not build yourself a little cottage off somewhere in the hills or, a hunter's lodge, so to speak, but typically those aren't places that are welcoming of travelers. This is a place specifically set up for people to be able to stay at.
Right. And as such, I mean, since it's such a small settlement, you're generally talking about maybe a family or two families running it, or maybe there's an owner who has a few people who he employs or she employs that run the establishment. So you're talking about like a trader. Maybe it's just that guy who is the merchant who operates it by himself, and he's a little bit, off kilter, but he accepts anything that comes in. So he's buying pelts from hunters in the hills. He's buying spices from merchants who happen to come through, and he's trading off anything that he happens to have come across his counter. And that's all that he does. And he doesn't mind charging travelers, a few silver pennies if they just want to camp out outside. And he's like, that's all right. You're biased, but I don't have any place indoors for you. Or you can sleep in the barn that I use for it, but that's basically it. I don't have any animals, but you can keep your horses and sleep with them out there if you want to. And that's basically all that ends up being, all the way to something like you were talking, like a caravansary, where it's like, it's actually a walled in location where you're expected to be able to bring in your carts and park and protect them for the evening against travelers or bandits or somebody who might want to take advantage of what it is that you have.
And when you're starting to build this, I imagine every GM starts from a different place. Maybe some people start with like actually, sketching out the framework of maybe the tavern or the military outpost that they're doing. Maybe some start with the tavern owner or the NPCs that are populating the place. I personally like to look at the mood and theme. That's where I begin in creating this, because if I've built myself a campaign within my setting for my travelers to explore, for my players to explore, I want to make sure that my tavern or my religious, outpost or whatever it is, meets that theme. And so I'm looking at the mood of the place. Maybe I'm looking at the name, what I'm calling it. I'm looking at the overall feel of when they come up on it, so that it matches whatever my world is.
Yeah, and that's a good point, that you can kind of start from any point on this trajectory when you're building this type of location. But I think that the biggest or the most important thing with building this type of location is actually being very detailed. When we get into later settlements where you're talking about a metropolis where there's too much to be that detailed with. When you're talking about something like a roadhouse, you should be exceptionally detailed. You should know where everything is located within the building, within the barn, because invariably the NPCs are going to come through this and want to poke their nose into every nook and cranny and see what they can find. So making sure that you're aware that if they, pry up this floorboard, that there's 3 silver pennies underneath it, or that the trader just happens to be keeping some kind of golden idol hidden underneath his bed in a locked chest. Those types of details can earn you a lot of interest on the parts of the players, because they're able to see that this is a real place with real items and real locations and real events occurring. And like you said, if you're starting with your NPC, they should be equally detailed.
Yeah, I agree. I think you want to bring things forward that really cause a sense of intrigue for the players, and maybe even hint at things that are going to be coming later in the story or when they reach a larger settlement. Maybe there's burn marks on the wall, or there's scratch marks on the door, or maybe a sword had clung against it, or where a nail had been pried out of because maybe the local magistrate came in to collect taxes and nailed something about a foreclosure that they ripped down and pulled the nail out. There could be all sorts of things that you could bring into it to kind of lead the characters into the world and build a story around it. But I agree, it's got to be detailed.
Yeah. And as far as that goes, you can expand into other areas of this small settlement. Like I said, it could be one building. It could just be a trader. There might be other, smaller buildings that are off to the side, especially if you're talking about, like I said, a caravansary or even a roadside inn. They might have a stable. They might have a barn. There might be a smithy shop set up. It may not have a dedicated smith that works it, or it might. But it might be a place where travelers can come through and reshoe their horses or make minor repairs for metalworks. The same thing might be true for a small carpenter's workshop. Those types of industry elements are acceptable in this type of location, but there should probably only be one of them, not both. And there's not always a guarantee of something of that caliber being part of this type of settlement.
Yeah, and I think you just really have to consider what you want to have be a part of it. I mean, if I have sent my adventurers through the wilds for the last 3 days where they're engaging in combat, I might want to give them a location of reprieve so they can go fix their armor.
Right.
And do some things that are necessary before they continue the adventure. Much in the same way you might organize a room of a dungeon as a place for characters to kind of relax for a moment before moving forward.
Right. Building in the empty rooms to make sure that it just doesn't feel like encounter after encounter or danger after danger.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you're building this place, you want to make sure that you are giving it that's what I'm looking for, the characteristics that are going to aid your characters in whatever adventure or whatever thing that they're doing at that time.
Alternatively, this could be a place, like you said, of intrigue. This could be a place where they're picking up quests, where they come in there and, there's something off, there's something amiss. Maybe the owner of the trader, or the trader who owns the location is, secretly a murderer or something like that. Maybe there's some kind of affair going on between the few people who happen to actually live in this location. Maybe this is a thieves' front where they're actually doing some kind of illegal work or trading in illegal supplies between locations. There really is a variety of options to make this type of establishment versatile, so that it can really meet your needs for what's going on in the campaign and what's going on with the players as they're passing through.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I know there's some elements we're going to be talking about when we get into the cities that are probably more detailed than what you would approach in building this particular settlement. Namely, government comes to mind, but it doesn't mean that there may not be some sort of government aspect to this.
Right.
You might have maybe a local, I want to say like a bandit group that's coming in and collecting money. That's almost like putting down laws and restrictions on them, which I wouldn't necessarily call government, but it's still kind of
there's some enforcement going on of some kind.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you may consider those things as well. Or again, maybe they are outside of the city a ways, but they still have militia that are coming out, or even a magistrate coming out collecting taxes and that type of thing. So they're underneath the rule or the extreme of another place.
Right. It could just be part of a knight's domain as well. This is part of his fiefdom, and the Roadhouse exists there. And so he's responsible for protecting it, which also offers an opportunity where if you have something going on, bandits are attacking this dwelling. Maybe it doesn't fall on the adventurers necessarily to handle that without going and speaking with the knight who oversees the region to ensure that they have permission to go and hunt down these bandits, with that knight's blessing. There are a variety of ways of making the world feel more full, even using a small settlement like this, by including things, such as, what does the government look like? Are you in the wilderness where it's like the owner of this place has 3 or 4 people who live there with him and they're not able to leave or escape or do anything because they're too far away and they don't have the means to get out of this complete wasteland? Or is it something where it's definitely under the protection of the local guards who have erected a tower right beside the local inn, and they are responsible for ensuring that it remains safe because of the roving goblin tribes that are in the region, and they have to ensure that everything remains safe because it's necessary to maintain this outpost for merchants who are traveling back and forth along the King's Road.
As you guys can imagine, this is very much the reason, all these things that we're kind of throwing out there, why so many games start off at a roadside inn.
Right.
because it's such a great launching off point. And there's so many other aspects I know we're going to dive into here, but I think this is one of the reasons, again, why this is such a great starting point, because it gives you a beautiful stepping stone into the rest of your story. And you can have so many elements kind of fall into such a small place where it's manageable.
Right.
And I think that's what's important, is making sure that you're only doing enough in this settlement that's manageable, that you can handle. But I also think it's important to make sure that it's realistic.
Right.
That it's, and you and I are big on this, John, but making sure it's not coming to a scope that's so crazy that it's not something that is just outside the realm of what is possible. One of the things, and this is just one of my biggest pet peeves, is sometimes we see these small outposts, these settlements, be crazy wealthy. Right. Having tons of money.
Yes, it's the Skyrim thing of, I'm walking in with we just looted this dungeon, got all this crap on my back, I'm going to go sell it to this roadside inn and get 10 grand in gold. It's like, they can't afford that. They don't have that money.
That's exactly what I'm thinking of. It's like, we're just going to come in here to this outpost and just sell all of our stuff and just walk. It's like, they got 10,000 gold sitting inside this little tiny place where they have a traveler every 4 to 9 days.
Right. It's like they don't even, it's like they barely even have like one lockbox in order to keep the money they do have. And the best that they can sell you is scale mail armor because they can't afford full plate and stock it. It doesn't make sense. It does not make sense. So, no, I'm glad that you brought that up, because that is also a very big pet peeve of mine, where you go in there and it's like, yeah, no big deal. We can just sell this or sell that or whatever. And it's like, they don't have the means of being able to do that.
And this is, I think, again, why this can be a great launching off point for stories and having them here, because it does keep the characters, I don't like to use the word confined, but it makes sure that you're keeping them within what's level appropriate for them.
It keeps them grounded, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't want them to go in and kill the local tradesman and get 10,000 gold from the get-go.
Yes, also Skyrim. Along the same lines, and these are things that we're going to be talking about probably more in later videos, but in the initial one, keep in mind things like other Other sources of revenue, such as mining, probably not going to be a big, that's not going to be something that they're going to have access to in a place like this. So it might be something where it's like there's a local like rock field where they're going and getting stones in order to like build up some of the buildings that they've got there. Or maybe if you want to make things really interesting, they're going to a ruin somewhere nearby and they've been stealing stones from it, which was something that very much happened after the fall of the Roman Empire, where the Roman outposts were no longer being defended, and so the local peasants would go and steal rocks or steal the stones that the Romans had used to build their buildings, to build their own buildings. So you might have something like that, which again is another launching off point. But there shouldn't be a gold mine. There shouldn't be a silver mine. This is the same kind of stuff we were talking about with wealth. And then agriculture. It's probably going to be very localized. They have their own, enough food to support their own family or whoever's living in that place in terms of agriculture, or they rely on trade. You shouldn't see these massive sweeping fields where they're bringing on in these massive harvests. It's not realistic for this type of place. It's not going to be an agricultural or farming community, unless it's just like a farmhouse. But even in that case, most of the time that's producing enough for the family and not really something that's going to be spread out about around the region.
I would agree with that. One thing that I do think that, we'll be talking about this a lot when we get to our larger settlements, but one of the things that I think you do want to consider with your tavern, your roadhouse, is what entertainment looks like.
Right.
I mean, if there's games that are involved, not only because I think that that's oftentimes an expectation out of your players that they're going to come into a place like this and be able to play cards, play dice, play darts. But having that available here to also give some flavor to your world and what exists within the world, I think can be fun. You can have drinking games. In this place, you may not have a bard that's there on a nightly basis that's playing a song and entertaining in song. But if you're in a caravansary, it might be that they're traveling individuals that do a fireside song and storytelling on a nightly basis and kind of bring people together to share in that narrative. So having some form of entertainment and engagement for the players while they're there to kind of give them time to communion with one another, talk to the NPCs that are running the place, and get some knowledge can really be fun.
Yeah, and I think the entertainment thing, you can go in other directions with it. Maybe there is regular entertainment, but it's not good. It's like Dave's wife likes to read her poetry for people who pass through.
That's what's happening in my next campaign.
Yeah.
I'm having Dave's wife come out.
Right. But it's possible because especially if they're in the habit of entertaining people who are passing through, they recognize that entertainment might be something that, gets them a big draw, gets them more revenue because people come. But generally speaking, it's probably not going to be good entertainment. Or, to add interest, maybe it is. Maybe it's great. Maybe Dave's wife just kills it every single night with whatever entertainment it is that she can offer. Those are things that can make interest and intrigue as a part of the game. Your story elements and your character elements don't always have to be a negative aspect of gameplay. It doesn't have to be feeding into a quest where, there's something untoward going on, there's corruption. It can be a good thing. And that can offer the same kind of reprieve we were talking about earlier, where they do come into this roadside inn. It's actually pleasant. They're entertained, and it's a very nice night or evening of rest before they have to push on with their travels. And then it becomes a place where the players want to come back to it, or they have investiture in that location because they're like, remember, that was such a great time that we had there. We hung out with Dave's wife. Her poetry was amazing, and we can't not wait to get back there. Actually, we heard that Dave is in some trouble. We want to go back and help him out because he was so accommodating when we were there before.
Our barbarian sat down and ate the 72-ounce ostrich in under an hour and got to put his axe into the wall with all the other axes of the other people that had finished that feat.
And then he wept like a child when he heard Dave's wife read poetry. So yeah, like I said, this is a great jumping off point, I think, for settlements. But I honestly think that the roadside gets a little bit underused. Just in the sense that it is something that you can come across later in the game. It doesn't always have to be a hamlet or a village, which I think is generally where things go, where it's this larger type settlement. It can be much smaller. It can be very limited. And I think that makes it a more intimate or engaging type situation for the players to pass through. And using it as a part of your game can give you a variety of options for how you want to progress what is coming afterwards or what has come before it in order to offer a nice, break in whatever is happening.
Yep, I would agree with you. I'm trying to think of other pieces to add with this. I know, again, we're going to be talking about religion and military, which we've kind of mentioned already on how this could fit that specifically,
right?
If it's that type of outpost. But most of those elements are going to be explored a lot more as we talk about larger settlements.
Yep.
So, other thoughts, John?
No, I think that we're good here for Roadhouses. So if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Like I said, we're going to be doing a series on this, and I think we've got 5 more videos lined up to talk about larger settlement types, so stay tuned for those. And we will catch you on the next one where we talk about hamlets.
Do you enjoy pain?
Pain don't hurt.
Dungeon Brew.